coming to you on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
The first Thursday of every month at 8 p.m. GMT and EST and 5 p.m. PST.
It's time for Paradivas.
They're here.
It is Thursday, October 4th, and welcome to the Halloween edition of Paradivas. I'm Marie Samuels, and joining me as always is Marianne Donnelly. How are you doing tonight, Marianne?
Doing wonderful. How about you, Marie?
I am super excited for tonight's guest. We wanted to bring everybody an extra spooky interview for our Halloween special, and tonight's guest will not disappoint. We're also sticking with the West Coast theme as our guest lives here in Seattle. He endured living in an extremely haunted house for 4 years in Bothell, Washington, which is a small suburb just outside of Seattle. The Ghost Adventures investigated his house, Season 10, Episode 12. He has since written a book, The Bothell House, Poltergeist of Washington State, and the documentary, Demons in Seattle Uncovered, was made after two British researchers came and investigated his home for almost a month. I'd like to welcome Keith Linder to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to tell us your story, Keith.
Hello, and thanks for having me on today. Feels good to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing our ordeal story.
Yeah, so, I'm very familiar with the story because we both are in Seattle, the Seattle area, and it was actually covered by the local news. And so way back when it first popped off, I saw the news report, and I was doing another radio show at the time, and we were reporting paranormal news, and I was reporting your story. And I ever since, it popped off, I've been wanting to talk to you. And so when we found each other on Facebook, I was just so stoked. I was like, yes, finally, I get to talk to Keith. I get to get this story. And then, of course, I also watched the episode of Ghost Adventures, which we'll talk about. I'm sure we'll get to that part. But why don't you take us, just take it from the top. Let us know how it all kicked off. You moved into this house in Bothell.
Yeah, that's almost cliche in how it started. It started innocent, of course. Me and my girlfriend at the time, Tina, moved into a house in Bothell. That was May 1st of 2012. We had already been together 2 years prior. And interesting, we began experiencing what we didn't know was activity at the time on day one. I explained this in, I guess, chapter 1 or 2 of my book. Basically, the first day we got the house, we picked up the keys to the house, signed the papers, and the homeowner had left, and it's just me and Tina in the home, and we're sort of sitting in the living room. The house is empty, no power whatsoever in the house, so we were just talking, sort of getting a lay of the land, if you will, and during the middle of our conversation, we heard a kid cough, and it was a very distinctive cough, loud, and it sounded like it came from one of the bedrooms upstairs. And we both looked at each other when we heard the noise. We was that a kid cough? But we didn't go investigate. We sort of shrugged it off, obviously, because we're the only ones in the home. The homeowner has left. That noise had to have come from outside, maybe. But we never gave it a second thought until a few weeks later. Now we're moved in, and things started coming up missing. We found ourselves searching for items that we used every day, like silverware. Tina would come to me and ask me, have I seen her jewelry? She's missing, an earring, a bracelet, a necklace. My extra set of car keys were no longer in the home. And it was just weird how all these items were now missing, but we thought we had somehow, because you just move in a home and you're still getting unpacked, that obviously these items sort of either got lost in the moving process and they would just naturally turn up over time. Flip side of that is, as items are missing, we're also finding items that neither one of us own are appearing. And these are all kid toys. And when I tell you where they're appearing, they're not appearing like behind a washing machine or refrigerator or something large that makes you think there was a previous tenant. But no, these are appearing on your kitchen countertop, your staircase, coffee and lamp table, things that you would see every day. And we don't have kids. We never had children in the home. We don't have children ourselves living with us. And these are toys out in the open. I mean, you go to bed, you wake up and come downstairs, and there's a toy or two on the staircase or the coffee table. But we're still not connecting the dots. And maybe about 6 weeks in, we're watching a movie together, me and Tina. And Tina has this plant. It's an artificial plant, about 4 feet tall. It sits right next to the entertainment center, so you can't miss it when you're watching TV. And I think we're watching Netflix, and all of a sudden the plant just darts up in the air. I mean, rises up in the air very quickly and does a 360-degree spin and keels over and falls back to the ground. And at that time, after we, because we thought we were being punked or pranked, because, we live in that era now where there's hidden cameras somewhere, somebody's getting their fun at our expense. But no, we were not punked. There was no cameras in the plant, no wires, nothing. And we thought back to the kid cough, and Tina and I even said it at the time. I think we have a kid ghost living in the house with us. And that was the first revelation out of many within 2 months of living at home.
So how long did you think it was a ghost of a child? And then what occurred to make you think differently?
We thought that for a while, because going back to the kid cough, the kid toys, and the items missing and the items appearing, we went to the internet with all those descriptions, and the advice given on the internet, meaning Google, was you might have a child ghost, a child spirit, a wanderer, could be attached to the house, might even died in the house. We don't know yet. And it's obviously lost, obviously confused. So we weren't fearful or scared yet. The advice given to us by the internet was, you want to be calm, you want to talk to the spirit, ask it what it wants, and try to walk it into some sort of light. Let it know that your intentions are not ill or hostile. But keep in mind, as we're doing this and we're talking to whatever direction we hear weird noises coming from, soon after the plant levitated and fell down to the ground, that's when things seemed to turn nasty. And by nasty, I mean the loud banging started. I mean, you would say, what do you want? Why are you here? And boom, boom, boom. Or what do you want? And a bar stool would get thrown. I mean, a literal bar stool would go flying across the room or slide across the floor. And you're like, okay, that's not the reaction we was hoping for or promised. But let's keep trying. And then one night, me and Tina were laying in bed together and sort of lollygagging and talking about the weird stuff happening around us. And the bedroom door slammed shut, like, boom. And we looked at each other and we were like, okay, these are not friendly responses. And at that point, especially after I saw the gray apparition, what I call the gray lady in my book, I was starting to think, I don't think there's just a kid ghost here, because some of the things we're witnessing and seeing seem to be pointing to something more malevolent. And we didn't know the word malevolent at the time. We just said more hostile, more negative.
So you think it maybe started out with, a child's voice and leaving the toys to kind of keep you at ease in the beginning?
Actually, the opposite. I think, honestly, those that, knowing what I know now about the spirits in our home and what the researchers uncovered, that was just their way of breaking us in. We were me and Tina never knew nothing about the paranormal. We were slow on the upkeep about the paranormal, about ghosts, about poltergeists. And these spirits were just sort of breaking us in gingerly to the point of once the plant levitated and fell back to the ground, and once that door slammed, it was all downhill from there. And I think the spirits were just got bored of us being nonchalant in our response, because we were the first 90 days. Me never introduced to the paranormal, we were nonchalant. I mean, I'm an IT geek professional. Some of the phenomena up until that time was fascinating to me. And if it's a kid goes, and if it wants to live here amongst me and Tina and be good, okay, fine.
Right.
You know, just don't, hurt us or prevent us from doing what we want to do. We won't prevent you from what you want to do. But when you start throwing large objects and causing property damage, yeah, then we got to get you out of here. And by getting out of here, I mean, we had the home blessed. We started inviting churches and clergy in, because those were the next advised steps that the internet said was, well, if you want to quiet the house, have it blessed, have a priest or have a minister come in, and they will, go through every room and every crevice of the home. And that will work. That tends to work in theory. So we tried that. And once again, the adverse effect was the objects got bigger that were flown. The bangs got louder or more consistent. It became a time between July and September of 2012. You could almost set your watch to when the banging would begin. It would always start after 8:30 on the weekday, and in the morning between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. The loud banging, which we later found out is a poltergeist characteristic as a phenomenon known as rapping, was the rapping noise of banging with no rhyme or reason to it.
Were the bangs always in threes?
Yep, always. They were always boom, boom, boom. And you could never really tell where the noise itself was coming from per se, but always in threes and always in sets of three. So you would get three incrementals, pause, and then again, boom, boom, boom. And yeah, it was just weird. And that went on a lot, especially 2012 and then once again in 2014.
And you had a little trouble actually finding a church to assist you when you were asking around to, hey, can you come bless my house? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, in 2012, we had two churches come in and bless the house. But when that didn't work, we would go back to them like, hey, it's still happening. And they were clueless on what to do, so they would not respond anymore because, truth be told, they took it as far as they can take it. We didn't start getting the local Bothell parish or Catholic church involved until the activity came back with a vengeance in 2014. And I don't want to get too much away, but in the book, I go through the whole chronological of, hey, the priest or the church agreed to help us, but they're spinning their wheels too, because everything they're doing, I mean, they had mass, we had communion, the priest came in and put oil and holy water on every room, every window, every door crevice. But it was always hard to get in contact with once we reported the activity escalating. And it took about 8 or 9 months of us back and forth, a lot of miscommunication, a lot of frustration because we're playing phone tag. And we later learned it was purposely done by the local parish. They were just very dismissive. I don't want to say they didn't believe us, because talking to the priest, he told us of other hauntings in and around Seattle, Everett, Portland area that the church responds to. But nobody has ever seen this house this active, so they were just like spinning their wheels as to what to do next. And he told us a house exorcism or something like that, there is a long bureaucratic process with the church, opposed to if it was, if it was you and Tina possessed or whatever, then we would obviously have to intervene like ER style.
Yeah, more streamlined, quick.
Yeah. A house is a little bit different, a little bit more bureaucratic, but definitely you two don't move. And they were very adamant about stay in your house, stay in your ground, and we'll back you up. So it was frustrating on that level, because we're at ground zero, we live it, we got to report it back to you what happened the night before. Are you coming this day? Oh, no, we'll be there on Thursday. Well, the house is blowing up right now. Oh, we'll be there Thursday. So that was a little frustrating.
So how far into your stay was this that you started this process? This, getting the churches involved?
Well, phase one, like I said, in 2012, we had the local churches come bless it. And believe it or not, in 2013, we did have no activity. The activity is not a straight 4 years. There was a year and 2 months of zero activity. So we bought a church in summer of 2012. I tell people we have level one activity that entire year or that entire summer and fall. The activity died down toward the end of 2012, and we had zero activity of 2013. So the house was livable, and we thought we dodged a bullet. We thought our proactive steps worked. However, there was always that question, and even the priest told us, these things can come back. And when they come back the second time around, it's always way worse. And he wasn't lying, because on January, March, April of 2014, it did come back, and it came back in a big way because it threw a 300-pound armoire that was resting in our hallway across the hall, and that woke us up about 2 a.m. in the morning. But yeah, then we started getting the local Bothell church involved, and they were involved that entire 2014, even up until the time before and after Ghost Adventures left, the local church, that is, in Bothell. But it was a lot of phone tag with them, because after the communion and the mass that they actually held in the home, there were really nothing else that they could do but, still document, report the escalation. We'll take it to our bishop, and we'll try whatever next steps are. But it was a long, slow process, while at the same time your house is being torn apart.
So in 2014, things started to kick off again. And how did that play out? How did that escalate?
Good question. The interesting thing about 2014, going back to Steve and Dawn, I took a weird fall January 2nd of that year. I was coming down the stairs for a glass of water, and I fell. And Tina and me had always thought, without any proof per se, was I pushed, because when I fell, I broke my right patella tendon, which requires surgery to reattach. And we had to get the fire department in the ER to carry me out on a gurney or whatever. And I was laid up for 2 months upstairs, because now I'm bedridden with a cast around my knee. Can't work. Tina's leaving. It's just me in the house by myself. And
not mobile.
Immobile, yeah. I'm restricted to the upstairs, because I'm not going to travel too far with just me here. If I fall down those steps again, that's really going to be horrible. Mm-hmm. So I just stayed upstairs, and I'm on pain meds, recuperating from my knee surgery. And I started hearing, because it's just me in the house, noise from downstairs. It would sound like somebody was home, because I would wake up, half groggy, and hear all these kitchen cabinet doors slamming, like bam, 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 or stomping in and around the hallway right outside my bedroom. And I would grab my crutch, I would limp into the hallway and look around, but that's as far as I'm willing to go, and the noise would stop. Once I got back into bed, the noise would resume. Sometimes I even woke up and thought Tina had come home early. Of course, she didn't. Then March and April came, and then it was a Sunday night, I believe. Me and Tina were asleep, and that's when the armoire got thrown. The house felt very heavy. I wrote in my book of the house feeling very heavy. It felt like we were being watched tremendously. Me and Tina even talked about it. And about 2 a.m., we heard a loud crash, like the whole house was breaking apart. And we rushed to the hallway, and there it was, the armoire resting on another side of the hallway. And the loud banging started the day after that. And once that started, you're talking about everyday loud banging. The armoire, the one that got thrown the night before, would get thrown a few more times. More objects being thrown. Tina lost all her plants in the house. All her real ones got thrown. The kitchen cabinet I told you about started happening every day. So now we're in panic mode, because we've never seen this in 2012. We're now calling paranormal teams. We never called paranormal teams in 2012, but now we're calling local paranormal teams because the activity is happening in real time, and you're literally watching doors be torn off the hinges in your very eye. I mean, our light fixtures upstairs, they all exploded at the same time. There was one with those dome porcelain covers.
Mm-hmm.
They all exploded at the same time. So we got No Bull Paranormal Team. They're a team out of Snohomish. And they responded. And when they walked into the home, I kid you not, first thing that happened was everybody's equipment died. All the battery that they had on their equipment, all the cell phones went from powered up to zero. And Jennifer said, "Your house is humming. We can actually hear your house humming." Me and Tina were inoculated because we had been in the house all day. We didn't even recognize it, but Jennifer motioned us outside and then said, "Walk back into your house." And we did, and sure enough, the house was indeed humming. So, yeah, 2014, on a scale of 1 to 5, we were experiencing 4 to 5 level activity at that time frame. And you're talking about at least 4 days, 5 days out the week is what was happening for at least 5 to 6 months straight.
And when you say humming, would you would describe it as like an electrical humming?
Yeah, definitely electrical humming. Very consistent. It sounded like the house was breathing, like the house was pulsating. Because, I mean, you can pinpoint the humming. You step out of the house, no humming whatsoever. Where you really heard it perfectly at is when you immediately walk through the doorway and are standing in the living room or kitchen. And that day, that's the day, there's a portion of my book I call the Katy Perry weekend. And it's the reason why it's called the Katy Perry weekend, because everything started off that Friday. No Bull Paranormal Team arrived Sunday. The spirits had sort of given us a foreshadow of what was to come that Friday afternoon when I was in my office and Tina was downstairs watching TV. And about after 8 p.m., the TV in our bedroom comes on. I run out of my office upstairs, the one with the wall writings, but the wall writings hasn't happened yet. And I go into the bedroom and the TV is on. It's on, but it's a black screen and it's playing music. It's playing Katy Perry's song, which was, I think, in the top 10 at that time. This is 2014, spring of. The title of her song is called Dark Horse. I didn't know that at the time, but Tina walks in behind me and I'm like, the TV is on, but there's no picture. But it's playing Katy Perry's song. I know it's Katy Perry. I don't know the name of the song. So I grab the remote and I turn the TV off, and it does go off. Tina goes back downstairs. I go back to my office. 5 minutes later, it comes on again, a little bit louder than before, and it's playing the same song. Then I knew, the ghosts are messing with us. So we go back into our bedroom, and I look at the TV, and it's playing that Katy Perry song again. And I'm like, wait a minute. Why is it still playing that song? It's been 5 minutes later.
Right.
That song should be over by now. I mean, if it had another song, I could get it. But what's up with this song? Why is it just playing this song and not showing us a picture? So this time I turn the TV off with the remote control, and I go a step further and I unplug the TV. I'm like, Ghost, you're not gonna mess with us tonight. It's Friday. I'm not in the mood. Tina's not in the mood. Okay, we're going to unplug it. Good luck with that. I go back in my office. Tina goes back downstairs. 5 minutes later, the song comes on again. The TV comes on again. Now we're 15 minutes into it, mind you, and it's the same song. Now, I tell people, and you understand this clearly, we go into the bedroom, the Katy Perry song is playing, and there's no picture on there, and the TV is unplugged. Okay, it's not like they plugged the TV back in and then resume whatever they were doing. Song is blasting from a TV that's not plugged into the wall. Wow. And then I'm looking at Tina. She's looking at me. I'm like, wait a minute. This song is saying, "Are you ready for the perfect storm? The perfect storm." Because I'm now playing the Katy Perry over in my head, and I go a step further and I Google the lyrics to the song Dark Horse, and the verse that's playing over and over, the one me and Tina are hearing 3 times now in the last 15 minutes, is the lyrics or verse that starts off with, "Are you ready for the perfect storm? Are you ready for the perfect storm?" And I'm paraphrasing, but it's telling us, because once you're mine, there's no turning back. There's no turning back. That's the lyrics to her song. That's the lyrics Spirits or Portuguese or wherever wants us to hear. That's Friday afternoon. And from Friday afternoon till Sunday is, in my book, is probably some of the most deadliest attacks we've witnessed in the 4 years of living there, because that Friday was more loud banging. It started off with that song. All day Saturday, we woke up to more loud banging to where we couldn't sleep. One of Tina's candle holders, a cast iron candle holder, got thrown and slid across the floor. A bar stool got thrown. The doors got yanked off the hinges. The light fixtures exploded, and the wiring, I'm talking about the wiring that's behind the ceiling that's in the attic, all got yanked down and are dangling almost to the floor. And that's what made us call the paranormal team No Bull Paranormal that Sunday morning, because when we got up Sunday morning, it was about 10 a.m., and I looked at Tina, I'm like, we're about to get attacked majorly based on what we've had Friday and Saturday. And true enough, we did. And we called maybe 20 paranormal teams that day that we could find between here, Vancouver, and Portland. But we needed somebody here today. And Jennifer and her team were the only one that answered and responded. And they were close by. They were 20 minutes out. And they got there a few hours later. And that's when they talk about the humming. And keep in mind, this is still Sunday. When Jennifer and them left, we went to bed. I mean, they spent about 11 or 12 hours investigating her, and her team did cleanse or smudge upon leaving. But they did witness some phenomena. And Jennifer's the one you saw talking to Zach and Ghost Adventures about her sage stick catching fire. And it did. That happened when she was smudging upstairs in the hallway. But they have to leave. They're a paranormal team. They have to leave. But like most paranormal teams will tell you, hey, if anything breaks off, call us right away. Mm-hmm. Here's our business card. Me and Tina were relieved to finally have somebody in the house, period. But granted, they got to leave now. We got to go to bed reluctantly. 1:34 a.m. I put the video and the picture in my book. The fire alarms in the house start ringing. Me and Tina are half asleep. The paranormal team maybe been gone about 2 hours. They left about 11:30. We dart out of our bedroom because the double door is closed. We sort of pieced it back together and closed it. We didn't really want any objects being thrown in our room while we sleep, so we boarded up the bedroom door. But when I opened up the bedroom door, keep in mind, this is the first Bible that caught fire. This is the first Bible that caught fire happened on the Katy Perry weekend, because when I opened up the front door, the hallway was illuminated, and there on the floor in the doorway at my feet is Bible number 1, and it's on fire. I mean, there's no way to over-exaggerate that. It's literally flames on, ashes everywhere, soot everywhere, and it's on fire. Now, this Bible was taken almost a year and a half ago, back in 2012.
Oh, so it was one of the objects that went missing initially.
Yeah, this is the first Bible that went missing back in 2012 off the lampstand downstairs. We never saw it again. I always told Tina, even when there was no activity in 2013, I'm like, it's kind of weird none of our stuff that were taken ever came back. And I wonder if we will ever see it again. And we try not to think too much of it, but it always stayed in the back of my mind, especially the Bible, because Tina was not even in town when the Bible went missing. So when I closed it, I didn't know it was the Bible when it was on fire. I knew it was the Bible after I closed it and saw the front page of it. I'm like, oh, that's the Bible. And yeah, it was burnt beyond recognition. But to add insult to injury, I picked it up and I felt a bulge. There's a bulge in the Bible. Uh-oh, something's in it. What could be in it? I opened it up, ash and soot are flying everywhere, and there's a wooden cross in the middle of it, a wooden cross. I bought that wooden cross maybe a week or two ago off Amazon from Jerusalem. and we hung it over our bed. This wooden cross was over our bed when we went to sleep that night.
No way.
Yeah, yeah. We put this cross above our bed, above our headboard.
Right.
Weeks before, and went to bed that night. It was there. When I woke up and responded to the Bible on fire, opened it up and felt the bulge, and there was a wooden cross scorched up. If you see the pictures of the first Bible, you'll see that wooden cross is in the middle of it, and it's equally as burnt and charred. It would go missing a few weeks later, and it's never returned.
So then what happened next?
We called Jennifer that day or that morning, and I was at work, and I told her what had happened 2 hours after they had left. To her credit, they were dumbfounded, and I really credit her to being honest with me, because she says, there's nothing else I can do. I've never seen that's beyond our skill. We don't know what to do. My best advice for you and Tina is leave now, because they admitted to me. I've had teams over promise and under deliver, but their assessment was, we don't deal with fires. I mean, you guys got fire now. You know,
well, not only fire, but it was a Bible that was on fire.
It was a Bible was on fire. The spirits obviously are conscientious to the point of, let's let the investigators leave. Let's put Keith and Tina in a false sense of security. Let's let them go to bed, and let's just work with them a little bit more by bringing back their Bible that we've had for a year and a half now, and let's just burn it up a little bit. Let's just ratchet up a little bit for Keith and Tina. And they did. I mean, that was Katy Perry weekend. That closed out that weekend. And those 3 to 4 days is probably one of the most active weekends in the house. There'll be more, because there's 2 more Bibles yet to be burned.
But that was the first episode with fire.
That was the first episode with fire. A few days after that, I think you saw the picture of the poster caught fire. But the poster, interesting, happened a few days after the Bible. I think a week, if not a week or 2. The advice given, if you're going to stay, is you and Tina are going to have to develop a united front, and that's the only way to beat these things. You guys got to be more united than ever before. However, Sage, we want you to try smudging the house whenever you feel an uneasiness or negativity in the air. The night before the poster caught fire, mind you, me and Tina had very little sleep. There was a lot of noise, a lot of footsteps, and the house just felt heavy. And Tina smudged before us going to bed. The next morning we woke up, the house still felt or smelt fresh of sage. But we're just doing our daily routine, trying to maintain our 8 to 5 or whatever. Mm-hmm. So Tina leaves. And Tina always leaves the house before me in the morning. She always did. I iron my clothes, and I go jump in the shower. And 4 minutes later, the fire alarms go off again. Now, I know about fire alarms going off in the house because I just had the Bible episode. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, something's going down. Oh, man, but now I'm in the house by myself. Tina's not even here. I dart out the bathroom, dart out the bedroom, and I get to the hallway landing, which is right outside our bedroom door. And I tell you, a force, I call it a force, runs past me. I felt a sense of density or gravity just zoom past me. Something thunders down the stairs the second I hit the landing, visible, of course. And the front door opens wide and slams shut. Nobody goes in, nobody goes out. I can see it from my landing area, from my point of view, and the front door opens wide and shut. The Ghostwitches did a little bit of a reenactment of it in their episode. And the house is billowing with smoke. My brain tells me house intruder, even though I didn't see anybody physically. I dart down the stairs and run to the front door thinking, aha, somebody's been in the house. If I open the door, maybe I'll see the back of them as they're running away. Well, I get to the doorknob and I can't open the door. The door is like cement shut. It won't even bolt. This is the same door that opened and shut 3 seconds ago, and it's not doing anything with me on it. Something then clicks in my head. Said, Keith, remember fire? I dart back upstairs to where the smoke is coming from, and the smoke is coming from my office. And as soon as I walk through my office, I can see my poster is on fire. I mean, there's a picture up there, and it's really on fire. So I take my bath towel and douse the poster. Putting the fire out was not hard to do. I just easily put the poster out, but the fire alarms are still ringing. I'm now in panic mode. I run back downstairs to the front door saying, I need to get this smoke out the house because the house is, I mean, it's killer smoke. And the door still won't open.
Oh, my gosh.
It still won't open. And the alarms are screaming, wailing. And then I realized, I said to myself, Keith, the house is not under attack. You are. You're under attack. It's not the house. And I thought in my brain, because I'm thinking the worst case scenario, there's a fire in this house I don't know about. Because why are the alarms still going off? I grabbed my phone and I called the Bothell or 911 Bothell Fire Department. I said, hey, I got a fire at such and such address. And I kid you not, as I'm talking to the operator, the point to where she asked me my address, static breaks out. Every time I get to the point of giving her my address, ultimate static. She said, sir, you're breaking up. And it took 3 tries for me to get my address to her.
Oh, my God.
And she says, okay, they're on their way. I hang up with her. I call Tina. This is all happening within relatively short period of time because Tina hasn't even got to the highway yet. You know, Seattle, she hasn't even got to 405. She's on with a sort of Bothell River Highway. She's not even to the highway yet. And I'm like, turn around. The house is under attack. Because she can hear the alarms coming through the phone. And I just hang up. I didn't even wait for her to acknowledge me or say, or what's happening. I just said, turn around. The house is under attack. Click. I now have to find another way to get out this house because this front door is not opening.
Right.
So I run to the garage door, and luckily the garage door opened, and I hit the wall panel, and that lifted up. And then when that garage door lifted up, I breathed a sigh of relief because I can hear the fire department in the distance. I mean, they're coming with sirens wailing. They pull up, and then, interesting enough, the front door opened. They dart upstairs and do their little deal, and Tina, I think, arrives a minute or two after them. I'm hysterical. I'm shaking like a fig leaf. Tina's like equally hysterical because she sees 2 fire trucks in front of our house, smoke coming out of my office window, me downstairs shaking like a leaf, and it's just total, it's total chaos. It's just total terror unraveling. Mm-hmm. And the fire department, Tina goes upstairs and sees the poster, and I give her the rundown like, this all started right after you left. The fire department, like, we don't know why would a poster catch fire? They're scratching their heads as to there's no cause here. There's no reason why this poster would catch fire. Me and Tina know why it caught fire. We can't tell them.
Right.
Oh yeah, we got the ghost from hell here. Yeah, he lights fire. Where do you go with that? You just like, yeah, interesting. Wow. Fascinating. The poster, yeah. And they're like, you did the right thing by calling us, but obviously you put the fire out yourself. Kudos to you. But we don't know. Your poster's right here. You look at my picture on the wall, you see the poster's nowhere near a fire source. It's just a poster hanging in the middle of a wall. And you see the flames on it that you know the severity of the fire. And so they leave, and now me and Tina are not in the house smelling like burnt poster, burnt sage. And that's when we had enough of being ignored by the local Catholic church to where we drove down to the local parish, and I think we waited over 5 hours for him to see us because at that time they had just been brushing us off via phone or voicemail. When we told him about the poster fire, we told the receptionist, we're not leaving his office until the priest sees us. We just had a fire. I just saw something or felt something run past me in the hallway. And I always tell people, you ever want to get a idea of what that felt like, we've all changed, or maybe not everybody, but if you've ever changed a flat tire on a highway, on the side of a highway, or your car broke down on the side of a highway where cars are going 60 miles per hour or more, and you feel that gust run past your car or you, you know.
And when another car drives by, going.
When another car drives by you, that gust almost wants to take you with it.
Yep.
You know, that's what happened when I stepped out of my doorway. That's what I felt like happened when I stepped out of my doorway and responding to that fire, because something zoomed past me, that same feeling, and it thundered down the steps, and the front door opened wide and slammed shut, and I couldn't open it for the next 5 minutes.
So how many Bibles caught on fire before you got in touch with the Ghost Adventures?
3. The Bibles, once the first Bible caught fire, the remaining 2 caught fire within a 2 weeks time. All the Bibles caught fire this summer, summer of 2014.
And I should back up. When you finally were able to talk to the priest, you sat there for 5 hours, and then you finally were able to talk to him. What was his advice? What was he willing to do?
Well, he's number one. The first thing, he was very apologetic, but not responding to us quicker. And you know, he began the meeting and closed the meeting within prayer. And he sort of had a verbal outline of what him and the church does in situations like this. He's like, well, I'm going to bring me and my assistant. We're going to come, I think it was 2 or 3 days later, and then we're going to bless your house. We're going to come in, document what we see. We're going to go room to room, and we're going to sanctify your house. That's step number 1. And then he'll see. He said, these things are normally never done on the first go-around, but we have to do it this way. And then he said, if that doesn't work, we'll come back. We'll escalate our house blessing a little bit more. We'll be more diligent, more, we'll comb through things a little bit more. But it's going to be a long slog for you two if it doesn't go away the first or second or third time. His experience, he said, these things rarely go away the first or second time. But you said you got to be strong, you got to be steadfast. The church is behind you. He gave us a list of things to do when he's not there, and a list of things not to do. You know, he said, well, these are some prayers that the church recommends you recite, and these are some things you can do when you feel the house is about to be in turmoil, and these are some things you just outright can't do. And that was it. And then he said, keep us updated and posted on any activity, and we did. And that sort of gave rise to my video and audio and diary of the events taking place, because I would report to him if an object got thrown the day later, or the wall writings would come soon after that. I would tell him. I would tell him. I would tell Jennifer. I would tell anybody who wanted to listen. And this is what happened. We came home and our house is upside down. You know, mm-hmm. And he would acknowledge on the phone like, okay, I get it. I said, well, this is what we're gonna do now. But it was very hard to get him to commit, meaning, I guess, in an organized fashion. It would always be, okay, we're at DEFCON 3 now, sir. And then he would respond, okay, we're coming. Me and Tina would have appreciated a little bit more quicker response.
So what were some of the things that they said that you should do, at least one example, and one of the things that they said absolutely don't do?
He wanted us to recite the St. Benedict prayer, me and Tina, preferably in the hallway where it seemed to be the activity was the greatest. And it was. The hallway was always the center of gravity. And he wanted us to take turns. It was very important for us to recite the prayer in a unison fashion. He said, the spirits get he was very specific, if they get any indication that one of you is phoning this in or, being half par with it, they will run amok on you. So you have to be, you two have to be more unified and steadfast than ever before, and you have to share in the responsibility. If Keith does it more and Tina does it less, oh man, Keith's gonna be in a world of hurt. If Tina does it more than you, Keith, or one of y'all goes kicking and screaming and saying prayers, because you got to be consistent. The spirits, they take that and they'll run amok on you. The thing that he told us not to do, and he said, and it's not easy because keep in mind where you're living or who's living with you, is to argue. He said, try to minimize debates and arguments and disagreements. It's okay to have them from time to time, but keep in mind, these spirits are listening to you 24/7. They take any disagreement. It could be the smallest disagreement about anything, or people. I sort of laugh now, but I tell people, we always have that back and forth about, oh, you left the toilet seat down or the toilet seat up. If you have an argument about toilet seat or toilet seat down in a poltergeist house, that's just an example of what they will take to use things against you. Not necessarily that metaphor, but other disagreements that you would think today are just nonchalant disagreements that couples do. Like when you go to the movie, whose car we're taking? Oh, we're taking my car. Oh, we're taking your car. Anything like, oh, we took my car last time, or my car has gas in it. Oh, your car has gas in it. Something like that. All of that stuff. And instead, if you have to have a disagreement, go somewhere else and have it. Try to have a safe zone, a Tully's Coffee or Starbucks or somewhere, or open field, because these walls, they listen. And he was right. They listen 24/7, and a lot of times actually, yeah, they would take those agreements, and if we had a disagreement, a bang would happen soon after. A furniture would get thrown soon after. You'd be surprised how many times, even the unspoken disagreements, the whole cold shoulder, that speaks volumes to a poltergeist, because if Tina gave me the cold shoulder for 48 hours and leave and say, I'm going to the corner store, normally she would ask me what I want from the store if she was going, but if she's mad at me, she's not going to ask me. She's just going to leave. I might want something, but she's not going to ask me. Well, guess what? As soon as she leaves, they start attacking, and vice versa. So they even the cold shoulder or the tension amongst couples, and that's what spirits or malevolent spirits do, even behind the scenes, even when nothing's happening. They're stirring the pot between couples. The point really came home when I finally got in contact with the previous tenants who lived in the house 4 or 5 years before we did. It was a husband and wife and their children. And they had some of the same horrors. They were having some of the same experiences. And they even said, the wife even told me, the house was a living hell. It destroyed their marriage. They had weird phenomena. They couldn't explain it. They had a live-in nanny who was so terrorized, she took the kids and took them to Yakima one day when the husband and wife were out of town, because the kitchen cabinets would just open and close and slam shut at will. Her son spoke of shadowy figures, the ones Dick and Steve picked up on their cameras. She said he was always, Mommy, Dad, I see shadow figures standing outside my doorway. And he was like 2 years old. I mean, these are all the things that we learned by talking to the previous tenants, which I wish had made it into the Ghost Adventures episode, because nothing I've told you tonight they were not aware of.
The child that was seeing the shadow figure outside their room, do you know which room? Was it the Grey Lady?
My office. The same room that had the fire. That was his office. That was his room. And
that's also the door where you saw the Grey Lady.
Yeah, the gray and the white lady apparitions hung outside that doorway. I've seen shadow figures. I even drew some, hand sketched some, hung outside that doorway. Poster fire, computer monitor fire, all the wall runners, you've seen those, all came out of that office. And yeah, that was the child's, that was his room. Yeah, that was one of the first questions I asked her when talking to her was, which room was your child's room? She said, oh, that room that overlooks the driveway. Yeah, the blue room. Yeah, that room. I'm like, oh, that's my office now.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the wall writings, because a lot of our listeners probably aren't familiar with the case and the details, and I find this to be one of the most intriguing parts of your experience.
Yeah, the wall writings, just to give your listeners, when I hear this, a little bit of a background, and I'm fast-forwarding. In poltergeist-related phenomena, there are 5 characteristics known throughout poltergeist phenomena, and it's always the banging we talked about, items missing, items turning up that nobody owns, a phenomena known as water puddle phenomena, and wall writings. There's always an inexplicable wall writing in the sense of whatever's written on the wall tends to not be in the language of the people living in the home, which makes it even more weird and interesting. Our wall writing episode began probably about May, June, July of 2014, soon after the Bibles caught fire and soon after things started escalating after the Katy Perry weekend, especially after the poster fire, because now we're told and we're being advised by the church and the paranormal team, Jennifer, is to be more proactive in prayer, smudging, and displaying our religious belief, meaning our religious paraphernalia, meaning, okay, yes, he's burned 3 Bibles, but you got to keep the Bibles out there anyway. It's a war now, good and evil. So I went out and bought more Bibles and put those on the bookshelf. We have to say prayers in the hallway up over the Bible. Put a wooden cross in every room. And I went out and started putting cameras, meaning motion detection cameras in every room, because now I want to video and document the phenomena as it happens, or try to. And these cameras will send me an email alert whenever they detect motion or sound. Me and Tina are at work, obviously, so I would get email alerts. Well, one day I came home from work and the cameras were just going crazy of saying motion detected at home. Well, these cameras, you have the ability to log in real time via your smartphone or your computer at work. And I did. And I could see my house is turned totally upside down, meaning the couch was over here. It's now over here. All the kitchen contents have been emptied. My wine rack has been emptied. Upstairs is totally destroyed. I'm seeing this from my desk at work. What I can't see are the wall writings, because they're not in the point of view of the camera. They're behind the camera.
Okay.
This day I come home, I survey the damage, and it was funny how I found out the first wall writings. I'm sitting on the couch. I didn't even went upstairs yet. Tina has not even come home yet. I must have been at home an hour before something told me, go upstairs, Keith. There's something waiting on you. I go upstairs and go into my office, and it's totally upside down. And there are the wall writings. Now, the first wall writings is interesting because there's upside down crosses written on every wall. There's an upside down cross written on the floor. There's an upside down cross written on the wall behind the computer monitor, closet door, and the door itself that leads into my office. But it's written from ash, from the sage stick that me and Tina use to smudge. And how I know that is, number one, when you put your finger on the markers themselves, you can feel that it's ash, and it smells like sage. We all know how sage smells like, especially freshly lit sage. And also the sage stick is now resting on my keyboard. Now, me and Tina are very diligent. We keep the sage stick on the bookshelf in the hallway by the Bible. And the sage stick is now resting on the keyboard, and it's significantly smaller than it was when we used it the night before. It may have been 11 inches when we left for work. Now it's 4 inches. And the spirits, I deduce, used the sage stick to first do a lot of the wall writings, at least the first 2 times in the office. So that could be cleaned up with warm soap and water. No big deal. I mean, it's a pain. It's inconvenient. And my vacuum cleaner got the ash off the carpet. Warm soap and water got it off the walls. Ha, spirit. I'm thinking mentally you can do better than that. And they can, and they will. Okay? You never want to dare them, even subconsciously. Come home a few days later. We tell the priest about what happened before. We continue what we're told to do. Come home. More wall writings. This time it's upside down crosses, 666. And a lot of more upside down crosses, but now it's not ash anymore. It's something that appears to be paint. I mean, it's black ink. I'm upset now because this is a deep escalation activity. Ash you can remove with warm soapy water. Paint you can only remove by painting over it. Mm-hmm. That means now I'm invested financially, because the only way to get this stuff off my wall is paint thinner or paint remover, primer or paint. That's going to be a significant amount of time and resources. And what's to prevent them from doing it again? But you got to do it, right? I can't keep coming to my office with these weird, satanic symbols
Right.
written on my also, and you can't look at them. You have to get the negativity off your foundation. So I do that. We do that. They do it again. The spirits do, and the paint that they're using is harder and harder and harder to remove, and to the point to where you don't. I mean, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It became so bad that once we started painting over the wall writings started bleeding through the paint. The more we had to buy stronger primer, stronger paint more layers or whatnot over the existing wall markings. But lo and behold, it would still bleed through to the point to where we stopped painting over it. Me and Tina, until we figure out whatever the kill shot is to remove these spirits outright, we're just doing their bidding for them. Because keep in mind, as we're painting over this stuff, and I'm buying buckets and buckets of paint, they are just doing it 24 to 48 hours after I paint over it. And so when you see the episode, the wall writings when Ghost Adventures arrived, number one, we just stopped painting at that point. Number two, they asked us not to paint over it anymore. Zach and them did. They want to see it themselves. But the question we always asked, and the question I was sort of thought that why nobody ever had to paint analyzed, was what is this paint made out of? The spirits are not only writing on our walls, but we're in the 21st century now. We should be able to, because you always get the doubter or the debunker, I should say. Oh, they're doing it themselves. That's paint. They bought it at Walmart. Oh, yeah, that's paint. And we tell people we're not painting our own walls. Number one, we don't own this house. We don't. We were renters. And if you look at the paint themselves, there's no way we could be doing this paint ourselves. I mean, some of these wall markers are on the ceiling. Some of the wall markers are behind large objects. But it would be good to know what this stuff is made out of. So when Ghost Adventures told me they were going to come investigate the home, don't touch the paint. Cancel any contractor you have coming to the house that's going to do your painting for you. I thought they were going to take some of the paint with them. I'm like, oh, they got the money, they got the resources in the deep pockets to actually, if they want to prove that me and Tina are doing this ourselves, take this paint to Quantico. I don't care. Right. They didn't do that. So I had to go another 8 months to not knowing what the paint markers were made of to finally realize what it was actually made of. And that was until the UK guys come on the scene till we finally found out what the markers were made of.
So how did everything go with the Ghost Adventures when they came? Here's
what I tell people about the Ghost Adventures investigation. There's 2 Ghost Adventures that come to your house, A and B team. The B team comes first. The B team are the one that are responsible for B-roll. They do reenactments. They don't really dig into the case. They're just there for the story. They want to do the reenactments, all that stuff about poster fire, Bible fire, can't open your own front door. All that stuff you saw in the episode, that's B team. Hospitality, they were very nice, sincere, brought donuts, bagels, coffee, everybody got along, and they were there 3.5 days. The way you saw the episode, you would think Ghost Adventures were there 3.5 days. No. The A team, meaning Zach's crew, arrived Thursday. B team arrived Monday. Zach and them arrived Thursday, and they only investigated the house for 5 hours. When they come in, when you see Zach shake my hand coming through the front door, that's my first time seeing Zach. There's no prep, there's no lead time, there's no off-camera familiarity. When you see him on TV, me saying that's the first time me and Tina sees him.
Okay.
He comes in, do the walkthrough, ask questions, We're going to do this, we're going to do that. We're going to set up in your garages. That's okay. Fine. Then we leave. We leave about 11 p.m.-ish, and they have the house. And this is all documented in the contract that we signed. They have access to the house up until about 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. They have to be out of the house no later than 3 or 4 a.m. We leave at 11 p.m. They start their full-blown lockdown about midnight to 3 a.m. That's all they're committed to investigating-wise. That's all they do. we were surprised because we were not told the results of their findings until the episode aired, which was 2.5 months later. We asked, but nobody told us anything. Homeowner asked, nobody told us. They said it would come out in the episode. I told Tina and a couple of friends when they arrived, once I knew their schedule of the investigation, I'm like, I don't think they're going to get anything. And Tina like, why you say that? Like, look how long they're going to actually investigate. They're only here 5 hours. Most of the activity that we have has happened during the day when either you and me and Tina are at home or we're at work. They're going to be doing a lockdown, and we're sleeping at that time. The only thing the spirits do to me and Tina when we're sleeping is closed doors and occasional bangs. But they're investigators. What do we know? I was surprised the point of view they showed on the show, because I tell people they were not as much confrontational as they were in person as they were in the show. They were very more, they were more understanding than the show would let the audience to believe, because it seemed from the show, and other people told me this, who came to me and saw the episode and were bewildered. They were like, wow, they were really giving you and Tina a hard time, or heavy-handed in their approach. It's almost like they didn't believe you guys. And we were like, yeah, we were taken aback about it, because when Zach came and we was talking about teleporting crosses and washing machines and objects being thrown, he had a real, what I thought was sincere interest, and he would almost, based on what he's seen and his experience, sort of complete some of my sentences for me, because I would tell him the chronological order of how things happened, and about the wall writings and the fires, and he's like, yeah, that's textbook poltergeist stuff. Yeah, that's da 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 da. Wall writings, yeah, that's da 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 da. But then he's blurting out stuff in the episode like, oh, well, it could be spray paint, or who dare live in a house that's dangerous, or stuff like that. But he was commending us at first when we was live and, in our home. He was commending us for being strong and diligent and whatnot. But you saw nothing of that in the episode. And then when they made the controversial declaration of when him and Tina had that face-to-face encounter, that when you see them almost butt heads, if you will, and the voiceover where Zach said he felt uneasy about Tina, that was filmed or edited entirely wrong. How that transpired was the house was pitch black, and rightly so, and they had me and Tina walk around the house asking questions in pitch black darkness, so you couldn't really see nothing. Well, Tina's walking around downstairs and she smells burnt sage. And me and Tina know when you smell burnt sage, that's generally not a good thing. So we're telling all the producers and the cameramen and Zach and Aaron and all those guys, hey, Tina smells burnt sage. That must mean something's about to happen. So she's searching around the house on where that sage is coming from. So you see Tina, she's leaning in because she's leaning in with her nose, because she's pinpointed where the sage stick is. There's a sage stick that they used for one of their reenactments that was recently lit, resting on the kitchen table underneath Zach and Tina. Tina leans in with her nose. She don't even know where Zach is. They almost headbutt, but when it happened, everybody bust out laughing, because truth be told, it scared Zach. He was like, ah! he really did. And everybody like, and we thought, oh man, does that mean cut? Did you stop that? And we didn't know what to do, but he was like, ah! And Tina even said, Zach, stop acting like a sissy. Tina said that.
Oh my gosh.
And everybody busted out laughing. And we're like, ha ha ha, Zach, ha ha. It's the sage stick. It's right there. Oh, and then we're like, oh man, I'm glad it was that, because we thought something was about to happen.
Uh-huh.
So now 2 months later, we're watching it and we see the episode. We're like, oh, here it comes, that moment of levity, here it comes. And it didn't come. Zach was like, oh, I get a weird sense from Tina and da-da-da-da-da, and she's off-putting. And we're like, what?
Yeah.
That didn't happen like that. That didn't happen like that. And the social blogosphere lit up and went crazy after Tina. I mean, that was one of the nails in the coffin that broke us up, because Tina was never gung-ho on having Ghost Adventures in anyways, and then sort of pivoting her as being some sort of dark spirit or behind some of the phenomena, because people were I mean, they were lambasting Tina. They were lambasting both of us on the social blogosphere, but they were going after Tina with, I mean, pitchforks. I mean, Zach and Ghost Adventures, oh, it's Tina. She's the demon lady. She's the demon lady. And they were doing all these Instagram pictures of her and comparing her to those other shows like The Omen, and she's the Omen child and all that. And we knew what had happened, and we were like, well, you don't do the house occupants like that. You don't do that, especially if it didn't happen that way.
No, it sounds to me like Zach was a little butthurt that she called him out.
Well, yeah, I was surprised she did that because I didn't know enough about the show itself, but I heard that Zach frightens easy. That's what I had filtered to me by the time they arrived as, hey, Zach's the guy. I don't know if that's an act or if that's real, but he's known to freak out over cobwebs. Right. So when she said that, I kind of like I cringed a little bit, but everybody busted out laughing. Even
so you're thinking it was cool. It was right. Yeah.
And Zach even busted out laughing. I'm like, ha 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 ha. Okay, because Tina. I mean, she's like, Zach, stop acting like a sissy. And we all busted out laughing. Even Zach did. And I'm like, okay. I don't know if that's going to make it into the final deal, but that was funny. And it was funny. Total opposite from what you saw on the actual episode, because you saw nothing whatsoever humorous of how that. And when I tell people, that voiceover you hear, that's Zach in the studio doing voiceover of video footage. That's not him talking in our living room or in our kitchen about feeling uneasy about Tina. He now has the video footage, and he's somewhere in Vegas in an editing room throwing that voice over that moment.
Right.
That never happened when they were there in the house.
That's amazing. And, you know, it's funny to me, too, because I've quit watching Ghost Adventures, but the first, 5, 6, 7 seasons, I was a pretty hardcore fan, air quote fan, and watched. And I watched the progression of Zach and his approach to paranormal investigating, and it seemed to me that eventually it got to the point to where everything was a demon. Every haunting he was at, it was a demon. He was getting possessed. And so for him to actually be in a very potentially legitimate haunted house and to be calling it bullshit and debunking, saying, oh, they're doing it themselves and we think these guys are just attention seekers. I'm like, what? That has never come out of your mouth ever. It's like the one actual real haunting that you guys are investigating is the one you're saying is fake?
That's the one that surprised us, because we were like, from what we're told, these guys say everything's a demon.
Yep.
We have a lot of stuff going on. I'm not asking Zach to believe all of it. All I'm asking is, you know enough, and you know people who know enough to tell you to say, hey, this might be the real deal. And you know enough that spirits, poltergeist, demons included, or poltergeist, sometimes can hide their hands and sit on their hands while you're investigating for the very fact so you don't get anything. Because keep in mind, when they sent me and Tina to the hotel, we had activity at the hotel.
Did you?
Yeah, we had activity at the hotel, and we couldn't get a hold of them, and they didn't call us. We didn't know what was going on at the house, but we thought, okay, they're going to have somebody check in on us every now and then or follow us, or there's going to be a Ghost Adventures person in the room next to ours. They didn't do that. When we got to the hotel, number one, the check-in was very strenuous in the sense of none of the door keys could work. The Ghost Adventures credit card wouldn't work. Oh, no. And the guy behind the counter could not explain it. The lights in our room while we're trying to sleep, we're in our hotel room trying to sleep now, off and on, off and on. Lights in the bathroom, off and on while taking a shower, off and on, getting ready the next day, 4 or 5 a.m., leaving at 6 a.m. And that, it was almost like we were at our house. We were like, oh, heck, this is weird. And I would love to have called. I want to call the producer or somebody, let them know, but no, I couldn't call them. I'm like, hey, we need to call and tell them we got some weird stuff happening over here. And maybe they'd be interested in that, but no. And when I got back to the home about 7 a.m., I was like, well, maybe I'm going to catch some straggler from the crew there still cleaning up or closing out. No, they were gone. They were out of there. And so it was just weird. So it was very interesting to see parapsychologists Steve and Dawn and other investigators come in a year or so later and handle the investigation a different way. And they seem to have more of a track record to understand. One thing Steve and Dawn were very good about doing, and this is just from knowledge and experience, they would seem to either be on par thinking-wise and what the spirits were doing or could do or won't do, versus coming in nonchalant saying, all right, we got all the tricks up our sleeve. We're going to get these spirits to interact with us. No, they were very easing into the investigation and very discerning and be able to predict to an extent what phenomena they was able to get and catch, versus Ghost Adventures coming in with the different boxes and whatever and all the stuff they were trying to do with the technology. Steve and Dawn and Nikki and her team took a very different approach, and they lived there. They lived there, slept there, took showers there, brushed their teeth there, made coffee, and they lived there. So it was the contrast is different, like night and day, between what they got or how they conducted their investigation. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, you see in the documentary, you see in the due diligence.
That was the last thing I wanted to say about the Ghost Adventures is with all the claims that you had, and you even have photographs and video of the wall writings and your office being torn apart and the kitchen being torn apart and all the cupboards open and all that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they only spent 3 to 5 hours investigating when they should have done it over I would assume 3 days.
I thought this would be a perfect special episode, because I was saying, well, this is going to be a lot to get in a 45-minute episode. I told Tina, I'm thinking they're going to come, because when they called us in November, they said, well, we're coming and we're going to be there Monday through Thursday or Friday. I'm like, okay, I didn't know anything about B-roll or A-roll then, but when they sent me the printout of who's coming and what day they're coming, and I saw the breakdown, I was looking like, okay, they're going to be here a week. That's good. That's what they need. Yep. Maybe this will be a 2-hour, 3-hour episode for them. But when they gave me the breakdown, I said, oh, Zach's coming on the last day? Oh, the investigators start? Yeah, one day, and it's really 5 hours out of that one day. I'm like, oh, this is a wrap. This is a bust, dude. This is, they're not going to get anywhere. I know these spirits in this. I mean, these spirits went dormant for a whole year. A whole year. 5 hours is nothing to them. Nothing.
Nope. So after the whole Ghost Adventures disappointment, I'm sure then you were prompted to contact Steve Mera and Don Phillips.
Yeah, that's when I started researching myself, because by then people were telling me poltergeist. I started researching the word poltergeist, and the word that kept coming up in my research was parapsychologist. And I'm like, what is that? And I started reading books about poltergeist, and Steve Mera's name kept coming up as being a one who's done extensive research and background on poltergeist. But he's in the UK. And I'm like, okay, he's way over there. But I just start sending him videos and photographs. I just start shooting emails to maybe 10 to 20 parapsychologists in the U.S. Dr. Barry Taff, I know him. He's very familiar with the case. Mm-hmm. I sent stuff to Steve Mera. I sent stuff to others, SSPR, SPR, and the ASPR. And Steve responded. He was very, I didn't say nonchalant, but he was very curious, but he wanted to make sure it was, up and up. So he just said, send me more data, keep it coming. I'll look it over. And then finally, after maybe 2 months of all the emails I sent him and let them know what had happened, what was still happening, he started the interview process, him and Dawn, of just vetting me via interview. And he found my documentation to be on par, superb, and my storytelling of what's happening in the last 4 years very sincere and truthful. And he said, well, we would like to come and investigate your claims. And we started that whole process. It was about a 3 or 4 month process to finally get them here. But I had learning from Ghost Adventures, and this was never a non-starter for Steve. It was, we had agreed, but I wanted to put it out there. I was like, well, if you're going to come all the way from the UK, you guys are going to have to live in the house. I'm not having any more teams come to this house and they not live there. And he's like, well, that's duh. He didn't understand the question because he's like, who wouldn't come live in your house? We're researchers, dude. That's the only way we would do it. If you told us, Keith, that we can only come investigate your house during this set time and we had to get a hotel, we wouldn't come. Right. So it was just a no-brainer to him and me. And I was like, thank you. You got to come live in it. He said, yeah, we're coming there for 7 days the first time, and we're coming for 8 days the second time. I was like, yes. And I knew then, I was like, yeah, they're going to get some stuff. I didn't know to the degree that they did, and they got a lot of stuff, but that's just to the method and manner of how they conduct their investigation. Because like Steve would tell you, they would do 18 hours of investigating in a 24-hour time span.
Yep.
Every day. These guys never slept. And I call my job, say I'm going to work from home the time they're here, and I'm just going to stay out of their way. I got my laptop cracked open on the kitchen table. I can do my work and not interference. And these guys were doing 18, 17 hours for the whole week. And I remember when I picked when they came from the airport, the first night, Steve and Dawn walked into my house. A friend, Patty, brought them over, their friend. And Patty had left, and Steve and Dawn came to me after Patty had left. They're like, hey, we need to go to the store. We need some personal effects. Do you mind running us to the store? And they got their whole British accent going and all that. I'm like, yeah, I'll take you up to the Fred Meyer. I took them up to the Fred Meyer up in Bothell. And they were running around this gigantic store, like confused and lost. Like, oh my God, this is like a mall. I'm like, no, it's not. It's Fred Meyer. Because obviously stuff is not big in the UK. But they're walking around and they get lost. I had to go find them because I waited in the car. But after an hour, I was like, let me go find these guys. And I found them and they got their stuff. We go back to the house. I kid you not. We pull into the driveway. Steve Merritt, not me. He saw it first. He sees the front door open on its own. Steve Merritt did. And he gets out of his car. He looks at Dawn. He's like, dude, that door is open. And I look at them and a smile. They got like a smug face, like, okay, whatever, dude. You got a device in your pocket, Keith, or something, whatever. But they looked at it and they're like, yeah, we know that door was closed when we left, because I think it was Dawn who closed it. He was the last one to leave the house. And then Steve looked at me and was like, does that always happen? I'm like, yeah, but you haven't seen nothing yet. I'm like, you guys are not in Kansas anymore. That's what I told him. I'm like, and Steve and them knew right then and there that they were not in Kansas anymore, because the next morning is when they saw the camera turn around by itself. They did. And they knew right then and there, okay, Keith has been on the up and up. Because I've been telling them this for the last 4 months, that, hey, you sit a camera down, a motion camera down, you face it this way, odds are you can blink your eye or come back 5 minutes later. That camera's either going to be upside down or turn a total 180 degrees, or it's going to be missing. And they saw that, and they had their little notes, and they were murmuring amongst themselves like, wow, that really happened. That's unbelievable. And Keith is standing right next to us. We're having a conversation with Keith while the phenomena just took place. So yeah, that was very. I was glad for them to see that, because they knew right then and there, we got to bring our A game. These spirits are on par. They let themselves know, oh yeah, you're in our house, buddy. And the spirits did. They were very, very real sincere in letting Steve and Dawn know, you're in our house. Keith just lives here.
What is some of the activity that Steve and Dawn witnessed or captured while they were investigating?
Well, trip one, they came in January of 2016, and that's when they stayed 7 days. The camera moving on its own, Steve and Dawn witnessed that. So they were checked that off, and they had a check box of all the claims that I had made, and they would put a check in when they witnessed it themselves. They witnessed the phantom footsteps. You would hear that constantly. That's one of the benefits of living in our house if you're a researcher, is because one of the things me and Tina had problems with was the phantom footsteps. I mean, 24 hours a day. They heard that a lot. They heard the loud banging. Steve was checking those off. Then the other things I would say they would witness were some of the electrical. All of Don's electrical equipment were manipulated. He would turn them off, or maybe he would turn them on, turn his back, it would be off. That really got on his nerves because he was semi-filming a documentary at that time. And then just their voice recorder. Steve and Dawn have a way EVP. I don't know if you heard some of them, but yeah, you definitely saw the documentary of the voice phenomena. I mean, we're talking crystal clear, audible, recognizable female, male pattern voice phenomena. And they caught over 436 AVPs the first trip. Majority of them were considered Class A. Some resulted in Q&A, meaning question and answer EVP session. And some they just found appeared on their video and audio equipment. There's a portion in the documentary where you see Steve and Dawn setting up equipment in the hallway. It's nighttime. I'm not even in the shop because I think I'm asleep at the time. And they're trying to put up equipment in the hallway. And you hear these two whisper conversations underneath Steve and Dawn. Mm-hmm. They can't hear with the naked ear, but these two voices, one voice is talking to the other one. It's a camera. It's a camera. Steve found out about it upon review of the footage 12 hours later because they review all their footage soon after. And he picked up those voices, and those voices were found or discovered on two of the devices that were in the hallway that night of, it's a camera, it's a camera. And the last voice utters the word night cam when talking to the other. They got that one. They got some female voices with Irish accents. There's a voice in the documentary where one spirit blurts out the words, I love you. They got one voice response where the spirit's admitting to pushing me down the stairs because Don, when he crawled underneath the basement of the home or the crawl space of the home, he asked, did you guys push Keith down the stairs? Once again, they're trying to check off the things that I've reported that I attribute to be paranormal, and they want to let me know or the house know or themselves know, is this a safe house to live in? So they wanted to get to the bottom of, were you guys behind Keith's fall? And that fall was 2 years ago before they arrived, but they asked the question anyways, and the spirit said, yes, we pushed Keith down the stairs. I quote, we pushed Keith down the stairs. They used the word we, and they put my name in their answer. We pushed Keith down the stairs. They got that on audio. That blew my mind. The spirits were very nonchalant in answering that. They were like, yeah, we did. Yeah. So yeah, they got a lot of data, almost half a terabyte worth of data the first trip. What prompted them to come back the second time in April was they had took back their evidence to their community, to the parapsychology community, to the paranormal community in the UK, and got such an overwhelming response from their colleagues, some to the extent of, that's just too good to be true. Nobody goes into a house and gets 500 EVPs. That's just, and keep in mind, they threw away 200 other ones that were considered Class C or less.
Right.
But at the same time, I had new wall markings. The ooze or the yellow ooze substance coming from the wall in the living room now, or the den, because we're staying in contact, and I'm telling them what phenomena is happening since they left. I'm also reporting to them that the door wall markings in my office, we got analysis of what that is made out of, and we finally found out that black stuff is made out of bone black. Bone black is incinerated bison or cow bone. It's a rare paint substance material. There's only one store in the entire world that sells it, and it's sold in small quantities and supply. And it's only one ingredient. It's 100% organic, and that's what the markings are from my office. So I told them about that. I told them about the bed banging. I told them about the poking and the prodding and the breathing and pulsating mattress. I can't sleep. That's been a forever constant with me, still is the poking and prodding and the sheet tugging while sleeping. So they reached out to their friend Nick Kyle, who was president at the time of the Scotland SPR, which is an offshoot of the SPR in the UK, and convinced him to come to be as an observer because they want to document more phenomena and more evidence. And they came back in April and did a different approach to the investigative this time around, and that's what they were able to get the shadowy figures. You saw the video where Dawn went into the woods, which is right outside my house in the backyard, the creek, and got some interesting EVPs out there. We got some voices that we got Ray being mentioned on inside and outside audio and video recording device. One spirit refers to the other one as Ray by first name. So that was interesting. They saw objects move again, the picture off the wall. You saw the high EMF reading from the bed mattress where the guys, and I never seen this done before, but I was so, it makes sense to do this where they sealed off the room. Mm-hmm. They put motion sensors on my mattress. Once again, they're trying to check off everything that I've been claiming is happening. And Steve, it really perturbed Steve because he couldn't conduct this investigation the first time he was here in January, where they put motion sensors on the mattress with Nick observing, of course, and Dawn observing, and they sealed the room off. And we pretty much sealed the entire upstairs. Nobody's going upstairs. Within minutes,
sealed the door with tape.
Yeah, they put tape on the door. And to enter the door has to be 3 people to enter the room at the same time. So the alarms start going off. We're picking up motion noise. The alarms are going off. The men respond. They crack open the tape. They break the seal, if you will. And I kid you not, you see it. The device that was pinned under my mattress as a motion detection device is now on the floor. And motion sensors have gone off in the room. Steve runs several EMF, meter, and he's picking up high EMF. I think it was 7 to 8, 9 milligauss.
It was like 9, yeah.
9 milligauss, and that 9 milligauss EMF reading lasted 3 hours.
Ooh!
On the spot where he picked up that device, blew them away. They also took my bed apart. They didn't put that in the documentary, but that's in my book and Steve's book, or my second book. They took the bed apart and ran an EMF meter above on my bed. High EMF readings, once again, 7 or 9, unexplained. And then Steve's compass, when running across my bed frame, would just do loop-de-loops. It would do 180-degree arcs, unexplainable. From the mattress and from the bed frame itself. We sealed the room again, and once again, motion detection, motion sensors going off in the bedroom that Keith Linder sleeps in, that Tina used to sleep in, and motion detection going off in the bathroom. Now, the interesting thing about this one is we got voice recorders and cameras in every room upstairs, and we listened to the audio recording, sort of similar to the ones they found the first time around about it's a camera. On my YouTube channel, there's a audio and video of where Steve and Dawn are responding to motion detection in the bathroom. You can hear 2 voices talking underneath Steve and Dawn, where one of them is saying, "Ray, they're laying down cable. Image detector. It's the only way it could be powered like that. Go and lift one of these." And that's the conversation 2 spirits are having amongst themselves underneath Steve and Don's voice. Interesting enough, you, me, Steve and Don, and other people, we never use the term image detector like we never use the term night cam. These spirits are very, primitive in their what they call these devices, because we never call something night cam.
Right.
Or night, we say night camera, but nobody knows what a night cam is. Right. Or image detector. None of the devices, I don't know what an image detector is, but the spirits are trying to discern and guess what because they're watching all the time. The priest was right when he talked to me and Tina 3 years ago. They watch you all the time. We've got multiple data where they're studying Steve and Dawn, putting up equipment, taking equipment down, setting stuff up. So you can only imagine what they were doing when Ghost Adventures were there, what they were doing when just me and Tina in the house, when we're having dinner or supper or watching TV, showering, whatever. These spirits are just always there talking. And that really surprised me, because it was like their level of intelligence, their level of observation, paying attention. And one spirit even tells the other one, go and lift one of these. Now, the term go and lift something, when you say, hey, man, I want you to go and lift something like that, you're telling another person to go steal it. Go and take that. You're telling, hey, go and lift one of these. Lift is it's a slang term meaning go steal it. And that explains the multiple cameras that went missing in my home that I put down. Any new technology that I introduced to the home when it was just me and Tina would go missing. Steve and Dawn specifically lost equipment or had equipment being moved from one room to the other. Nick and Carissa did as well.
Marianne, do you have any questions?
I have several. So for you, Keith, I'm the skeptic, and I don't believe in a lot of this stuff. I have to really try to debunk everything. So I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Don't take offense.
Sure.
So first of all, when you had Ghost Adventures there, the first thing I want to just point out is, even though I'm not a huge fan, I've watched their shows, but I think they are a little over the top most of the time. It's basically for entertainment. They're a show on television for entertainment purposes. So I wouldn't take their saying that they didn't find anything to heart. I wouldn't have been, I don't think, as bothered by it as I think some individuals in your area, and maybe even you and Tina, had taken it. Although I do find it strange that they found absolutely nothing, because they usually find something everywhere. But just a kind of reminder that their show is for entertainment purposes. Right. But I wanted to ask you, did you tell them, the producers and so forth, when exactly the activity was most prevalent during the day? Did you give them time-wise a timeline that says, hey, most of the activity happens between this hour and this hour?
Yeah, and that's a good question, because before Ghost Adventures arrived, executive producer and producers of the show, and also Dave Schrader, interviewed me. So they would be in contact via email, and I had kept a diary, a video diary, audio diary, and I kept a log of when that house was most active. So they would ask me, give us what you got, give us what you got. And
so they knew then.
Yeah, they knew
when their most activity would be.
Yeah, they knew that. I gave it to Zach and his producers and Dave Schrader. I gave all of them that. So yeah, I gave them all that information. I gave them witnesses' names and phone numbers and email addresses of people who saw the phenomena. Not just me and Tina, but we've had friends over for housewarming parties, birthday parties, who've seen objects fly and get darted and slide across the floor. Because I thought that would be helpful. I mean, that's
sure.
So you don't have to take our word for it per se, but hey, let me give you some. Especially the previous tenant. I thought the previous tenant was very substantial in the sense of they lived in the house 5 years before us. You definitely want to talk to these people. And they never did. I mean, I can only give them the information. And me and the previous tenant talked about it. I said, had they called you? Had they called you? Yeah, had they called you? No, I haven't heard from them. And finally, when they left, I'm like, well, okay, there goes that. I said, well, maybe they'll call her for post-production. Never heard from them. And I would ask the producer, hey, have you talked to the previous tenant yet? Either we haven't got around to it yet or no answer. So yeah, I was very forthcoming because I want them to be successful in their investigation as much as possible, because once again, me and Tina look kind of like the Looney Tunes here. You know, we knew at the time our claims to some were over the top. We're to some, so we're like, hey, we're standing by our guns. this is what I think is going to make your research a little bit more successful, and especially to your viewers. I mean, I'm not talking about the fans of Zach. I'm talking about those who are in the paranormal field, who have a sincere interest in the paranormal. I think they're going to like what they see here,
Right.
but they never ran with it.
Did any of the individuals that were there for 3.5 days doing the B-roll, did they experience anything?
They didn't verbalize it. No, I mean, you're talking. The house is filled with about 40 people. The door was always coming and going. The only thing that they and even Zach's crew would verbally at times say out loud is, "Man, our cameras and batteries will keep dying." They would say that every now and then. We're constantly swapping battery packs. Zach and they even hinted on some of the episodes when they were saying, "Hey, this camera went dead in Keith's office or the bedroom," and then I would tell them that always happens to us. I would always tell people whenever they had something, "Oh, that always happens to us." Like I said, when Steve saw the front door open on his own, I was like, "Oh, dude, that always happens to me." I go up my street. And, you know, you have those houses where your garage door opens up because you press the fob on your visor. Well, there's a whole year where I'm living in the house. By the time I get halfway up my street, I don't even have to touch the visor anymore. My garage just goes up on its own.
They're like, "Welcome home, Keith."
Yeah, spirits are like, "Welcome home, dude. I don't have to touch the visor anymore." Or the same thing when I'm leaving. You go downstairs, you're closing out the house. I grab my laptop bag. I open up the door that leads to the garage. There's that panel right by the door to let your garage door up. My garage door is already open.
Okay, very good. I just kind of have the feeling like, hey, it's almost as if they were going to give you a hug and kiss, say goodbye, see you later, see you after work, have a good day.
It felt like that most of the time, especially when you're coming home. Because keep in mind, they're like, it's kind of, it's a torment involved. There's an observation involved, and there's a feeling of always watching you. So yeah, you open up they're like open up the garage door for you. They're like, "Welcome back to hell. Welcome back. We've been waiting on you. Yeah, I hope you didn't have a hard day's work because you're about to have a hard day at home." Yeah, it was that feeling, you know, of seeing your door open on its own, and you're halfway up the block. You know, you seeing your door go up, or you go downstairs. And Tina would come to me. I'm still in the shower. She's like, I'm leaving, bye. And, you know, you do that couples thing, and then Tina comes back. Hey, guess what? Garage door is open.
The UK investigative team, did they ever investigate the house at all while you were gone? Because you said you worked from home during the time that they were there. Did they ever have any free time alone without you in the house? And if so, did they have any activity while you weren't in the house?
Week one, when they came in January, I purposely worked from home the entire time they were there. I wanted to work from home because they would have questions in certain parts of the house, in the room, and da-da-da-da-da. I didn't want anything to stagnate communication-wise of I'm at work, hey, can you call us? We got a question. I want to be Johnny on the spot with information. The second time they came, after they got a treasure trove the first time, I did not work from home. They came and primarily had the house totally to themselves, and they brought Nick Kyle with them. So I felt I could be a little bit detached. And I was maybe at the house 3 days out of the 8 that they were there. And they would have the house all over to themselves. And Nick Kyle, who came to look, Nick was mainly looking over their shoulder. And that's what he even says in the documentary and in the Fox 13 interview. I'm just here to observe. And he was able to be pretty much vouch for the things they did right. He would be a voice to debunk certain things. And he did. That comes off very well in the documentary. And he would talk, and they would just talk and do a lot of roundabout stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that never make the light of day that I know for a fact was true phenomena. But they just say it would not stand up or withstand the rigor mortis of colleagues and peers and whatnot. So they just left that on the cutting room floor, if you will. But yeah, as far as the thing Steve told me, because Steve watched the Ghost Adventures episode before he arrived to the United States, and he said the interesting thing about poltergeist phenomena is, and this is his words, not mine, is he's not necessarily classifying me and Tina as the agent. He said normally Poltergeist cases, there's usually an agent in the home. We like to tend to think or assume it's a female adolescent child, daughter, or whoever. But there are cases where that's not the case. But most of the time you can identify the agent. He said where Ghost Adventures were one of the spokes where they went wrong in their investigation, their words, not his, is basically they did not have you and Tina in the home while they conducted their investigation. It's not to say that you or Tina are the cause, because evidently you're not if you have previous tenants having similar activity. But there is a case to be made about spirits will only perform when the true occupants are in the home. And the spirits know also that it adds to the anxiety and the angst by making the homeowners look foolish, because if there's no activity and the homeowners are not away, some people are going to think, they're hoaxing, they make it up themselves. That's going to make me and Tina frustrated, because we were very frustrated that they didn't get anything, because we know what we saw when we saw it. But what do you do with that? So he said spirits know that, and then me and Tina were finger pointing at each other. You wanted them in the first place. I did it, da-da-da-da-da. And the spirits eat that up, and they ratchet to their activity. So Steve said when they put you and Tina, number one, they had it at night. Most investigations should be carried in the daytime. That's just data. Anybody can research that data. All this stuff about nighttime and infrared and all that. If you saw a documentary, Steve and Don didn't even use infrared cameras. They never went close to that. You don't need all this dark stuff. That's just Hollywood. Most investigations should be carried out in the daytime. Granted, you're trying to eliminate background noise and all that stuff, but there's stuff you can do to minimize that. But yeah, it was just an interesting concept that they used, but it brought about the most results for them.
So they did get evidence while you weren't there as well.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
Yeah, and Steve, Steve and Don, they purposely they said that. They was like, Keith was nowhere around, and it was good. Keith was nowhere around because that's one important piece, and people will ask. But a lot of times, some of the evidence they got where I was, and by was that just means Keith's standing next to us. Like I said, when we're in the kitchen huddled over a laptop, and the alarm started going off in the bedroom. That's why they seal that room off, because they seal it off. Everybody sees it sealed off. We're going to break the seal all together, and we're going to enter the room all together. Oh, lo and behold, the device is now on the floor 2 feet away.
Right. Let me ask you about now. You no longer live in that house.
Right. I moved out May of 2016.
And you had activity in the hotel the day that the Ghost Adventures were investigating your house. Have you had activity since you left?
Yes. You mean at my new location?
Yes.
Yes. I had activity day 2, day 3. And by activity, I mean physical activity. The water puddle phenomena we had in the Bothell house. Water mysteriously appearing on the kitchen floor, no known source. Day 2, I'm moving into my new place. I got up to get ready to go to work, and I was sitting on my computer desk checking work email before I headed out the door, and I start hearing this tapping, like tat 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 tat, and I was ignoring it at first. I'm in my new apartment or whatever, but finally, I'm like, what's that tapping noise? And I got up from my office chair, and sure enough, located the tapping, and there was water coming from my ceiling onto my kitchen table. Huge puddles. And I look up at my ceiling, and it's just leaking water. Now, I've seen this before in the Bothell home, but I'm not going to scream paranormal. I mean, I just escaped that stuff. I'm trying to think positive. I'm trying to think I dodged a bullet here, even though, keep in mind, and I talk about this in my book, I've experienced attacks and phenomena when I traveled on business, being in hotel rooms and whatnot. So it's not far-fetched that I would be seeing this now. I'm just not ready to adopt it. So I see the water leaking from my ceiling. I'm now in a dwelling unit to where I have neighbors above me and to the side of me. My first, logical response is, the water is coming from my tenants upstairs. I call the building maintenance people to let them know, hey, there's water dripping from my ceiling. They respond right away because they have to. Is water leaking from a ceiling? And they did. They were in my apartment relatively quickly. The mechanic or the maintenance people, two of them arrived, and they knocked on the people above me because they got to get to the source. The people above me are very understanding and let them in, and nobody can find the source of the water. Okay. Number one, there's no pipes between the floors. There's no pipes between my floor or the ceiling and their floor. The water dripping lasts about 20 minutes, and then it just abrupt stopped. So the guys are once again scratching their heads, and they're like, well, the water's got to be coming from somewhere. This is a lot of water. They go back and bring their water tracing, water detection equipment and cannot find any source of the water. As soon as the water stopped dripping, they put their fingers or whatever up to the ceiling where the water came from. It's dry, literally dry. And they left scratching their heads. And I asked the property manager, because I want Steve and Dawn, because I'm keeping in contact with the UK guys. And I said, can you print me? I need a maintenance report. How did y'all classify this? Because evidently the water stopped on its own, not because y'all made it stop. It just stopped on its own. But y'all did a report. How did y'all classify that in your file, Captain? And the property manager says, yeah, we filed a report, but we had no root cause. And that was weird. They wrote it down as weird, inconclusive. And she gave me a copy of the report, and I gave it to Steve and Dawn. And then the second instance with me in the house was the battery issue of battery drainage and lights flickering off and on. And the phenomenon that's never stopped, and is even happening now, even happened last night, is the poking and the prodding in the mattress and the pulsating and the heartbeats within the mattress or the sheet tugging. I mean, imagine you're sleeping. I'm a guy, I sleep with the sheets over my head. Sometimes, not all the time, the sheets just get yanked down to your knees. Okay? Just yanked down. Or sometime on a bad day or a bad morning, I should say, they get yanked clear off the bed. That's never stopped. Okay? But that's happened even when I was traveling. I could be in a hotel on the East Coast when I was living in the Bothell home. My job, I traveled 20% of the time. I would be attacked in hotel rooms when I'm away on business.
So do you think that the spirit that was, or at least one of the spirits that was in the Bothell house, has decided to attach itself to you? Because why did it not stay there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the only logical conclusion, because one of the fears for me, and also one of the reasons for even staying in the Bothell homes for as long as I did psychologically, is what if I'm followed? I mean, there's always a rationale, meaning for sanity's sake, well, all this stuff is happening because you're in the house. But what do you do when it's happening when you're not in the house anymore? Who solves that problem? So it was always sort of, I'm not ready to, I always tell people, if you ever watched that movie, The Bubble Boy, that came back out in the early 80s with John Travolta when he's living in that bubble.
Yes.
Yeah, remember that one?
Yeah,
always, if you step out of the bubble, you're going to die. Like, you're going to fight. You're going to die right then and there. And he lived his whole life being afraid to step out, and he lost friends and family and whatnot during the process. But finally, one day, you just got to step out of that bubble, like, oh, well, if I die, I die. And I think the movie ended with him stepping out of that bubble. And as you know, he didn't die. And for me, it was 4 years living in the house. And one of the reasons for staying there, there's several reasons, but this one was one of them, of what if it followed me to my new place? And that was always in the back of my mind. Like I said, the water puddle and the other stuff, because, yeah, I had been attacked in hotel rooms in 2014 and 2015. And by attack, I mean, like I said, the sheets being pulled down or yanked off you while sleeping, the poking and the prodding and whatnot, and the indentions you feel in the bed, almost like an invisible cat-like paw prints making their way towards you as you're sleeping. That happens all the time. Happens now.
So what about the house now, the current residents? Do they experience anything? Have you talked to them?
I have not talked to them, and purposely so. I have avoided talking to them. My reason being, Steve, when I moved out, one of the recommendations was this house needs to be vacant for as long as possible. It does not need to be lived in right away. Of course, if you live in Seattle, you know the housing market here is crazy. The house was vacant for 11 days. It sold in 11 days. The house did. But the previous tenant, or the current tenants, I should say, they know of the activity. It's kind of hard to in Seattle. They know of the activity, especially Bothell, but they bought the house anyways. I'm always asked, have you went talking to them? Have you asked them? And I tell people, no, it's not my job and role to go poking around after I've left to say, are you experiencing anything? Number one, they know who to call should they experience anything, because we told them, we gave them the reports and whatnot. And if they experience anything, therefore, that's fine. But if I go back, because I could very easily, if they're not experiencing anything, if I come back there, I could very easily put the seed in their head that they should. Or that noise you heard, or that crick and cranny noise that you heard, that's them. And one thing I know about these spirits is that I didn't know at the time, anything, if you go looking around corners and peeping around corners, looking under beds, you're going to find something whether you know it or not. And that's all they need, is that level of curiosity to ratchet things up again. Keep in mind, the house was built in 2005. The previous tenants that we talked in there lived in the house in 2008, 2009. There were two families that lived between them and us, and there were two families that lived between 2005 and 2008. To our knowledge, because we have not talked to them, they have not admitted to activity. And Steve Smera said that's normal. You can have a house have activity and go dormant. There's all kind of variables and theories out there to what makes a house active in the time frame that it's active. It's not to say that they're not having activity or phenomena right now. My personal opinion, they are. It's just to a low level of degree. I mean, how many times people have left a room and come back and the lights are off? You just turn the light back on. You don't give it a second thought or scream ghost. Me and Tina would come out of a room and the light would be off, and I'm like, I could have swore that light was on when I left because I'm coming back to it. And that happened the first few weeks and months of us living in the home. And it even happened in 2013, but we weren't thinking or trying to think. But me, because I'm wired that way, if I leave a room multiple times and the light is off and I come back in, I know I left it on, I'm going to go get cameras and put them in my room to record me going in and out because I want to see the lights go off when I leave. That's all the spirits need to ratchet up the activity, and that's how they did with us. Is I brought cameras in to track me and Tina's movements because I wanted to see what lights are going off and on, and the spirits would start turning the cameras around or turning them off. Well, they would turn the cameras around, I would turn the cameras back around, and they would turn it back around again, and then I would turn it back around, and then unplug it. Then I would plug it back in. And then they would just take the camera, like, okay, this guy's not getting it. You're not going to get us on camera. They would outright take the camera the next time. Oh, now the camera's missing and the cord. Now, all right, let me go buy a camera. I'll go buy 2 cameras. Now I'm going to buy a camera to watch the room, and I'm going to buy a camera to watch the camera that's watching the room. So it's a whole yin-yang effect that will trigger and escalate the activity. And that's what my fear is if I go back to the homeowners and say, have you experienced anything? It's a husband and wife. That much I do know. And I do know they've replaced the front door, the door we had, with a blue door. It's an Indian couple. It's a blue door on the house now. And I looked up what does a blue door symbolize. And a blue door on a home symbolizes keeping negative spirits at bay or to protect your house or keep unwanted spirits from entering. That's what the blue door symbolizes. So when I learned that from a neighbor who lives a few houses down who told me, but I could have very easily come running, say, oh, you got a blue door now. That means something's happening. That means, and I didn't want to do that. I felt they didn't deserve that.
Mm-hmm. I was just curious if they had mentioned that they had any, activity, if it had completely stopped, whether it was maybe in one of those lulls, like you had a year or so that it didn't have anything, or if it just kind of came with you.
I think it's all the above. I know there's spirits that are still tethered to the land that we found through research, and tethered to the house. We know, I can't announce it now, but we know why the house is haunted. We found this data, or I found it out, 5 months ago, by doing research about the house specifically. We have not publicized that yet because we're still working with that family, but we know now why the house is haunted. And then, like, there's elements tied to the land and to the house itself, because this is a neighborhood that has over 200 housing units. Only this house has activity, which makes you think there was something horrible that went inside that house. What I can't say is the previous tenant, the mother who I talked to, was suicidal in the home. She did try to kill herself 4 times in the home, and that's in the book. That's not a shocker. So yeah, so there was stuff in the house that happened, tragedy and trauma, unbelievable, happened in that house 5 years before we moved in.
And then I wanted to just briefly bring up the smudging. Everyone that I talk to always says absolutely do not smudge. When you're smudging, burning sage, that just doesn't help. It actually makes it worse.
It does. We didn't know that. Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that, you guys kept smudging and smudging and smudging, and then somebody suggested to you that you smudge, and a paranormal investigator came to your house and smudged. So that kind of is interesting to me, along the lines too with your writings on the walls. That the ghost is like, hey, I like this stuff, thanks, I'll use it.
Yeah, it was. I guess it's a way of demoralizing, because if you're gonna use my sage stick to write on my wall, what better way to demoralize me to think like it's like taking like the Bibles. I've had these Bibles for years, and me and Tina are not religious, we're spiritual, but I've had these Bibles for 20 years before moving into the house. They were just something I kept in a tucked away bookshelf. It's not like we had them displayed openly, and the spirit's like, oh, there's a Bible there. No, we were advised to just put our Bibles out in the open, meaning one at a time. And the response on the internet and from the church was, smudge. And I later learned in talking to shamans that there's a right way to smudge and there's a wrong way to smudge. Just like there's if you smudge incorrectly, you're going to exacerbate the activity. We smudged the incorrect way. We didn't know how to smudge. If I go to the internet and Google smudging, I'm watching a YouTube video, I don't know who this person is. I'm just like, oh, he said smudge. Okay, I'm a smudge. And I'm just waving my arm around in a figure 8 or whatever. After talking to shamans and whatnot, they said you have to understand, number one, you don't know what spirits are there. You don't know why they're there. This just hypothetically think that these spirits have an adverse effect because you're smudging. Maybe they're Native American, maybe they're not. You're doing it incorrectly, and they feel they have a more reason to be there than you. Your smudge is going to make them, it's like kicking open an ant bed. They're going to respond negatively, even worse to you. And we didn't know that because people only gave us the first step to smudging, which is just smudge. They didn't give us the whole full moniker about, well, smudging, if it's a malevolent spirit, that might make it worse. It's almost like a disclaimer on anything you buy in the store or a product or whatever. Hey, this is supposed to do this, but guess what? There is a small percentage chance that you're going to have an adverse effect of it. So yeah, we didn't know that, but me and Tina were just we had a lot of naivete, and we should. Like I said, we got introduced or thrown into the paranormal, and then some people gave us bad advice. But I'm going to tell you, when I talked to Steve and Dawn and others, they're like, stop that smudging. Stop. Throw it away. Get out of your house. Stop. And we did, yeah.
Well, I know we're getting right here to the edge of our time. I still had a couple more questions, but I know we are pushed up against the wall. So I'm going to let Marie close us down if that is what.
Yep, we are actually out of time. But, this is really only just a small portion of what Keith experienced over the 4 years that he spent in the house. I will have links to his book and documentary when I post the podcast on the Paradivas Facebook page. So you'll be able to purchase his book. I recommend that you do. I have it. I'm currently reading it. It's fascinating. And again, this is just the tip of the iceberg of the events that he's experienced. It's just mind-blowing. Keith, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to tell us the story. Like I said, I've been dying to talk to you since the story broke on Q13.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being our Halloween special. We want to wish everyone a safe and kick-ass Halloween, and until the next episode, stay scared.